I feel silly. I feel silly that I missed my own anniversary. And I don't mean with Mrs. Markle. No.
I don't think he'd be here still.
No, if I had missed that one, I wouldn't be behind the microphone right now. No, I missed the Student of the Gun 2-year anniversary. And Jared had to remind me to go back into the archives and look at the date that the first ever episode of Student of the Gun Radio aired. And it was actually March the 8th, 2013. So, we are more, Student of the Gun Radio is more than 2 years old now. For some reason, I don't know why. Why did the 17th stick in my head?
I don't know.
But
I think that was our goal launch date, and then we launched early.
I don't know. But it happened. Maybe it was supposed to be February 17th, and it didn't happen until the 8th of March. Maybe that's it. I don't know. But happy St. Patrick's Day anyway. If you're not listening to this on Tuesday, well, I don't know what to tell you. Hopefully you had a happy St. Patrick's Day if you've got any Irish in your background, and even if you don't, what the heck. Ladies and gentlemen, it's getting to be not in the middle of the week yet, but we're getting there, and we hope you had a good day yesterday, and we hope that you enjoyed the Tactical Brain episode. And if you didn't, through the magic of podcast radio, you can go back and listen to it. Isn't that the great thing about this show format, Jared? Is that people can go back and listen to it as many times as they want?
It is.
It is.
You can do that at studentofthegunradio.com.
That's right. You can go back to studentofthegunradio.com. And
most of you know that the iTunes feed only holds 50 episodes at a time, so we're almost to 150, so almost 100 episodes are not available on iTunes.
That's right. Or Stitcher, or Podcast Gallery, or Podcast Republic, or Podbay. I was searching today. I was looking for the Force on Force Sonny Pazikas video or interview, and I typed in Force on Force Sonny Pazikas, and like the second or third hit in the search engine was like podsomething.gr, and I'm like,
what's GR?
Grease.
Oh wow!
So the Force on Force Sonny Pazikas interview, episode 117. The third one that came up. That's a pretty high for a Grease podcast gallery. Rock on. I guess we have an audience in Greece.
If you're listening to my voice and you can hear it, I want to know which one of you guys, or where did you find the Force on Force episode on, what was it, Saturday, March 15th? 14th. Saturday, March 14th. We had a pretty big spike in downloads, but I can't find out where that came from, and I would like to know. So if that was you that shared it, let me know.
Somebody, if that was you, you're gonna get like 18 people like, yeah, it was me. Do I get a free T-shirt?
I need proof.
You need proof
to see where it was.
Oh, okay, all right. But anyway, welcome back to Student of the Gun Radio. I am your host, Professor Paul Markle, in case you did not know that, and we are coming to you from the official Glass Case of Emotion Studios here on the sunny Gulf Coast of Biloxi, Mississippi. And the other voice, in case you're new to the program, and I will be kind and gentle to you. If you're new to the program, the other voice is Jared. That is my studio engineer, the producer, the man with the plan, and my co-host. And we've got lots of stuff to talk about today. Matter of fact, this morning, Jared, I was having coffee in a coffee shop. And I walked over to the rack, and I looked, and there was several copies of the Wall Street Journal.
Did you burn them all?
No. And I thought, all right, well, see, the thing is, if you pick up a New York Times or a Wall Street Journal, or Wall Street Journal's not as bad. I mean, all big mainstream media is pretty bad. It's nowhere near as bad as Pravda. But you need to know how to read a
Does the devil wear that?
Yeah. Not Pravda. Wow, really? I don't even know what to say.
Sorry, had to do it.
No, the devil doesn't wear Pravda. But you know what? There's probably a blonde-haired girl in the audience who personally believes that Pravda is what the devil wears. Anyway, you need to know how to read a newspaper. When you read a newspaper, and this is what's sad in our day and age, and it's not new, it's been going on for years and years, is you read the headline and immediately you know whether or not the author has a specific bias in that story. And I'll give you a great example. The headline, and as you hear this will be yesterday's New York Times, but Monday, March 16th, top fold, Netanyahu pleads for votes. Now, all you need to know, and this is written by two people, Nicholas Casey and Joshua Mitnick. All right, so they co-authored this. Now, when you read that headline, does that read well for Netanyahu, or does it read poorly, or does it read neutral?
Poorly.
Poorly. Why is it? Because of the use of the word pleads. Okay, when you say I already gave it away. When you say pleads, what other word do you come up with?
Beg.
Beg and plead. I mean, people say that all the time. They begged and pleaded. So people equate the word pleading with begging. And who begs for something? Somebody who's desperate, right? A person who's desperate, a person who's on the losing end, a person who's impoverished, or who is it that begs? Is it the person that's on top that begs? No. So it could have read, Netanyahu seeks additional votes, or looks for more votes, or desires more votes, or needs more votes. But instead it says Netanyahu pleads for more. So that's just a quick, if you have friends and neighbors that don't get it, why you're all always up in arms there, buddy? Why do you think that the mainstream news is trying to sell you a certain story or tell you it a certain way? Well, it's because of the way that they write the stories. But the reason that I'm mentioning this is because one of the things that was in Monday's paper was a story about the young urban gentleman, that dazzling young urbanite who just happened to find himself in the middle of yet another protest in Ferguson, Missouri. You're like, dude, what is left to possibly protest in Missouri? The grand jury found no reason to charge. The Eric Holder-led Department of Injustice found no reason to file charges. And they wanted to file charges. So you've got all of these courts, all of these agencies who really, really, really want to find something to bring charges about, and they couldn't do it. The chute was so clean that they could not come up with a reason for charges. But they're still protesting because that's not the outcome that they want. They desire another outcome. And it doesn't matter what the truth actually is. Until we get what we want, we're going to keep protesting. Well, as you probably know, 2 police officers were shot on, Jared, it was Friday, was it not?
Yep.
It was Friday. 2 police officers were shot on Friday. Well, they captured the dazzling young urbanite. And the story we've got that we're referencing here is from thedailycaller.com. But before we get too deep into the weeds on the Daily Caller story, I want to make sure that we thank our friends at Brownells at brownells.com. If you own a gun, I can guarantee you that there's something for you at brownells.com. So go over there and check it out. Give them a look. And if you own a black rifle, if you own an AR-15 rifle and you still have ammo for it, Velocity Triggers has got a trigger for you. And somebody asked me, they're like, well, is it wrong to change out the trigger on an AR-15? The answer is no, it's not wrong. But the question is what do you plan on doing with the gun? Is it a gun that you're going to use to shoot long distance? Are you going to shoot precision? Maybe if it's not long distance, but you need to shoot small groups or tight groups, or you desire to, are you going to hunt with it? Are you going to compete with it? Then, yeah, you probably could make use of a trigger. Now, Jared, this actually occurred to me yesterday when I was driving. I had a long trip yesterday. I was in the car, or truck actually, driving, and I was thinking about Velocity Triggers. And I was thinking about basically the whole modifying your guns thing. And there's this big misconception that people have that they can buy their way around training and they can buy their way around skill by just swapping parts on guns. And folks, that's not the case.
Not true.
You don't people say, I need to put new sights on this gun so it'll be more accurate. The sights don't make the gun more accurate. Okay? And we could spend a lot of time on accuracy, but options and changes and modifications, like, this is going to be more accurate if it had a scope on it. No, that's not really how it works. The options are supposed to enhance or help you enhance your existing skill. If you have the skill, you can use upgrades to improve your performance. But if you don't have the skill or the time or desire to learn, then it doesn't matter what kind of trigger, what kind of sights, what kind of optics you put on your gun. It's not really going to help you because the base skill isn't there. So step number 1, get the base skill. Step number 2, if you feel like your equipment is not up to par based on your skill level, then you put new sights on a gun. Then you put a new trigger in a gun. And that's when you go and you check out Velocity Triggers, which is velocitytriggers.com. Super simple. All right, Jerry, you ready to move on?
Yeah, let's move on.
Why don't you vamp for just a couple minutes, not a minute, 20 seconds so I can drink some water.
20 seconds so you can drink some water. Well, I'm just wondering, I'm reading this story here, and there's so much we can learn from this story, and I'm going to let Dad introduce it, obviously. But one thing, we don't have to look at it just from a criminal's point of view. We can look at it from a concealed carrier's point of view as well. So let's go ahead and talk about it. Okay,
this story, like I said, comes from thedailycaller.com. The date line is actually 4:49 p.m. on 3/15/2015. All right. Ferguson police shooter turns out to be one of the protesters. One of the protesters? Now, I thought that the protesters were just out there on the streets seeking justice. Isn't that what we're told? They're seeking justice, and they're demanding their rights, and justice and rights and justice. Okay, whatever. St. Louis County officials announced Sunday that they had arrested a 20-year-old Missouri man, 20 years old, in connection with Thursday morning shooting of 2 local police officers. The man arrested, Jeffrey Williams, had attended several demonstrations against police officers in Ferguson prior to the shooting. But he claims, now this is the nut of the story right here, he claimed he did not intentionally target the officers that he shot. 2 of them, not 1, but 2. The 2 officers were released from medical care on Thursday. Oh, I'm sorry, then they must have been shot on Thursday, or when the heck were they shot? They weren't shot Friday. I don't know. They were released on Thursday. They must have been shot Wednesday. Were wounded during a protest, blah, blah, following the resignation of the embattled police chief. So even though the officer in question was not indicted, even though the Justice Department could not find any reason to file civil rights violations or anything like that against the police department, despite all that, the chief still had to resign. You know what? I would resign too. I tell you people, you know what? You're on your own. Have fun with that. Bye. So here's what little Jeffrey Williams says. Now, Jeffrey Williams is age 20. He shot the police officer.
He's just a child.
That's right. He's just a child. I'm sure he's someone's child. He shot the police officers with a handgun. Now, riddle me this, Batman. In the state of Missouri, can a 20-year-old legally purchase and carry a handgun? I don't know. What are the laws in Missouri? Well, what does that mean, Paul? Well, it means that he probably already broke the gun laws before he did this. See, what we need more laws.
Unlicensed persons may sell, deliver, or otherwise transfer a long gun or long gun ammunition to a person of any age. Minimum age for gun possession. Federal law prohibits, with certain exceptions, the possession of a handgun or handgun ammunition by any person under the age of 18. So 18 years old.
So can he carry it in a group of protesters and shoot at police officers legally with it? I'm going to go with no. So let's just say that he wasn't breaking the law initially. However, I kind of doubt that. They said they've recovered the gun in question. So what do we have here? We have little Johnny, and he says, or Jeffrey. Jared, are you looking for Jeffrey?
I don't know what you're talking about.
Jeffrey? You don't remember the Jeffrey story? All right, I'm going to tell you a story on Jared. When Jared was 2 years old, 2.5, between 2 and 3, his mom and I were a young married couple, and we lived in a second-story apartment. And we both worked third shift, and we had to take turns. Well, Jared had decided, for whatever reason, that Jared figured out how to work the doorknob and unlock the door. You guys who are parents, you all know that. You don't worry about it because you figure, the kid's too small, he doesn't know how to unlock the door. So, well, Jared figured out how to unlock the door. And
I've been this smart my entire life.
Yeah. And the little kid downstairs there's another little kid, and his name was Jeffrey, right? So Jared walks down the stairs, and he's pounding on the neighbor's door, calling for Jeffrey. And thank the Lord we knew our neighbors, and they're like, whoa, little crazy Jared child there. You're not supposed to be out of your parents' apartment. So they returned him to us post-haste, and we had to see Jeffrey another time. So that was you don't remember the Jeffrey story, huh?
No, I didn't remember
But I'm glad that I could share that on you. Anyway, Jeffrey says that, hey, yeah, I did shoot that gun in the crowd. Okay, I'll cop to that. But I didn't mean to shoot the police officers. I was shooting at another protester that I was having an argument with. Oh, my bad. Well, I hope they let Jeffrey go. Oh, look at this. Jeffrey Williams, already had a warrant for his arrest prior to his capture for failing to appear before a parole officer over the last... You mean Jeffrey is a repeat offender? That this isn't his first go-round? I don't know if I can carry on.
Kind of an interesting fact from Missouri. You can apply for a concealed carry permit in Missouri at the age of 19.
Ah, cool. You suppose Jeffrey had his permit?
He was on parole, so...
I'm pretty sure that being on... See, when you're on parole, that means that you've already been incarcerated, and they decided that the jails were really full, and that, putting people in jail doesn't rehabilitate them. We need to release them back out into the world, because that's how we can, gauge their behavior and determine whether or not they have rehabilitated themselves. Does it seem to you, Jared, like Mr. Jeffrey Williams has rehabilitated himself and that the parole system is working well?
Well, he was just listening to his the people that he looks up to.
Oh yeah, he was just following the direction of those who reside in Washington D.C.
The race baiters. He was following the directions of them.
Woo! Yeah, it says Williams is a non-Caucasian person, and he lives in the town just north of Ferguson. He doesn't actually live in Ferguson, but he was very incensed. So he decided to just pop off some rounds, and he just accidentally hit two of those police officers. Well, I'm sure it was an accident. I mean, folks, are you buying that? Are you buying that? Are you taking that to the bank with you? Well, yeah, I might have shot the police officers, but I wasn't aiming for them. I was aiming for someone else, and I just ended up hitting them.
He was previously charged with receiving stolen property.
Oh, it's just stolen property. I mean, everybody got misdemeanors. Everybody got a couple felonies on them, What's up? No big deal. You just can't hold that against somebody.
Failing to appear before his parole officer over the last 7 months.
Over the last 7 months, it's like, well, he forgot.
Yeah, he forgot for 7 months.
He forgot. It's just no big deal. And I think you're a racist for bringing that up, Jared. So stop bringing that up. Are we allowed?
What did you say? You want me to? Joe Rogan said what?
Joe Rogan said what? I don't know what Joe Rogan said. That Joe Rogan, he's always saying all kinds of crazy stuff. We just lost half our audience. Should we move on? Or I think we should just go ahead and move on. So, just so you know that little Jeffrey Williams should be held to be found innocent of those charges of shooting police officers because, yes, he did intend to shoot into the crowd, but he didn't mean to hit the cops. He was having an argument with someone else in the crowd and shot at them and just happened to shoot the police officers. So there you go. Sounds legit to me. So I don't know about you.
Whether you're a criminal or a law-abiding concealed carry citizen, every bullet you fire it belongs to you, and you have to.
You be responsible for it?
You have to be responsible for that bullet.
I don't think Jeffrey is thinking that he needs to be responsible for those rounds. Something tells me that that he doesn't feel responsible. I think it's probably your fault, Jared. It's probably your fault for not caring enough. That's whose fault it is. It might be my fault too. I haven't decided yet. Let's move on. We've got some slave state news for you guys. We haven't spoken about this particular slave state in quite a while, but they just came out with another story, and I decided to drop it into the show notes so that we could examine it real quickly and find out if we actually learned anything.
I like to teach you all the rules. I get to see them set in stone. I like it when you chain me to the bed, but then you see it's never...
All right, that would be Puddle of Mud, and that's control. Because, folks, that's what gun control is all about. It's all about control and who gets to have the guns and when they get to have them. And generally the answer is You peasants don't. This comes to us from guns.com, and the date line of the story is 3/9/15. Malloy, no appetite for more gun control following final report on Newtown. You're like, who's Malloy? Well, it's Daniel P. Malloy, the commissar of the People's Republic of Connecticut. That's right. After the great Sandy Hook media shame campaign. And don't ever forget that. It's a you're saying, oh, are you one of these deniers? What are these deniers? No, it doesn't matter what happens. It's always the fault of the people who weren't there. Were you there? You sitting right there. You're a gun owner. Were you? You own an AR-15? It's your fault that Sandy Hook happened. If you would accept more reasonable gun control, that wouldn't have happened. You're like, but yeah, an evil human had to actually pick up the gun and use it. It doesn't matter. Because murder didn't start until the invention of the AR-15. Did you know that, Jared? There were no murders in the United States of America until that evil, rascally Gene Stoner, came up with the concept for the AR-10, which became the AR-15. I had to drop that in there because when I refer to the AR-15 as Gene Stoner's design, the Black Rifle geeks correct me. They're like, well, it was based on the AR-10, but Stoner had very little to do with the final design and development of okay, I got that. It's still a Stoner design. Now that we've addressed that, let's move on. Governor Daniel P. Malloy, commissar of the People's Republic of Connecticut, accepted the findings of Special Sandy Hook Advisory Commission he established, but shied away from its further call for draconian anti-gun measures. Now let's go ahead and we know that Daniel Malloy never met a gun control bill that he didn't enjoy or like, or maybe he's like Danny, what's his face? Or is that
Douchebag?
Danny Jones. Is it Danell? I swear to...
Danell what?
Is his name Daniel or Danell?
Danell.
It's really Danell?
It might be Danell. I don't know.
It's like...
I don't know.
Is it really... maybe he's D-Nell. Maybe that's what he's going to go by.
Maybe he's D-Nice.
D-Nice. D-Nell.
Or A-Ron.
Because every time I read a story about this turkey, his name's spelled differently. Sometimes they spell it Daniel. Sometimes they spell it Danell. Sometimes it's Danielle, D-Nell, whatever. So Danell, don't forget, Connecticuters, that they shoved through all this emergency legislation, because apparently emergency legislation that you don't make public and that you don't read and that you don't take time to consider, if you do that, that brings back the dead. You do know that, right?
They call him Dan.
D-Nell. So D-Nell, who shoved through all that emergency gun control legislation here a couple of years ago, it says here he pushed through one of the strongest gun control packages in the country in 2013. Don't forget about that. Don't forget about the lines of Connecticut patriots standing in line to register their guns.
Oh, those weren't patriots.
Yeah, and register their magazines. All those Connecticut patriots standing in line. Don't forget about that. But anyway,
those were slaves.
Danell commissioned. He picked 16 people for this commission, and it's 2 years ago. And they've just issued a report, a 277-page document. And in the document, it calls for, I know you're like, I hope you're sitting down. It essentially puts the blame on, here we go. Here's a quote from the report. The commission is deeply concerned about the proliferation throughout the civilian population, because apparently the commission people are in the United States military, of weapons that were specifically designed for military use during wartime, read the report. A further quote from the report said, assault weapons like the AR-15, as well as large capacity magazines, those would be standard capacity magazines for those of you who are not slaves, are often used in these weapons. They have no legitimate place in the civilian population. Okay, so long story short, Danell decided to go ahead and put 16 elitists onto this commission. They spent 2 years. And you know what's kind of pathetic, though, Jared? They only came up with 277 pages. So in 2 years, that's how much they come up with? 2 whole years? Wow. How much money? How much
That's
Connecticut?
probably as far as they could stretch it.
How much Connecticut taxpayer money did they spend? Oh, there's no amount of money that you can't put a price tag on the safety and security of our children.
Colleges are. I'm just saying they're screaming that this concealed carry stuff is costing too much money, so they're putting price tags on people's lives.
Well, that is true, but you're not supposed to look at that. You're not supposed to look at that. So I'm curious, if you live in the People's Republic of Connecticut, how much of your tax money did Donnell spend on this deal for 2 years? These people are actually going to have to go out and get real jobs now. Yeah, they probably work for the government. They probably don't have real jobs. Anyway, so Donnell, apparently, who was facing a tough re-election campaign, did it not say that in there? It said that apparently the heat has been turned on Donnell, or D-Nell. Here we go. Here's another quote from the report. The commission, this is a 16-member commission, they discovered this. The commission finds that the cost to society of easy civilian access to assault weapons and large-capacity magazines vastly outweighs the benefits of civilian ownership. Wow. Whew. I'm glad that 16 hippie liberal puke-face elitists in the People's Republic of Connecticut were able to sit down in a room together and come up with a list of things that I should and should not have. I'm glad that they've decided that I cannot be trusted to own or possess certain items, and that the cost to society far outweighs the benefits to the civilian population. You know what really annoys the ever-loving poop out of me, guys? You want me to tell you? This use of the word civilian. And let me tell you what was explained to me many, many moons ago, and I'm talking about multiple decades back. Now, as you guys know, your beloved host, unless you're brand new, but welcome, I became a United States Marine in 1987. And as an active duty member of the military, I was no longer a civilian, or I was not a civilian at the time. And the difference between civilian is essentially a word that is used to differentiate between someone who is a member of the military, whether it's Army, Air Force, Navy, Marines, whatever, military, or those who are not in the military. And when I went to the police academy, again, many moons ago, we did have guns and cars and so forth. We weren't riding horses, and we didn't have flintlocks. But it was a seasoned guy. He was probably a sergeant, but he heard some of the young recruit people talking about civilians, and he's like, whoa, whoa, whoa. He said, slow down there. He goes, listen up. He said, unless you're a member of the military, you are a civilian. Little, Johnny. And he said, stop saying civilians like you're not one. Unless you're military, you're a civilian too. If you're a police officer, he said, you may be a civil servant and you may work for the city or the county or the municipality. He said, but you're a civilian too. And the use of the word civilians in this report, do not ever doubt this and do not ever forget this. They put those words in there to differentiate between people, between groups of people. You have the haves and the have-nots, the shall-haves and the shall-have-nots. Notice how in there they don't say, well, okay, so what are you saying in the Sandy Hook report, that police officers should not be allowed to own AR-15 rifles with standard capacity magazines? Oh, no, we make exemptions for them because they work for the state. Now, hang on a second. If you work for the state, if you're employed by a city or a county or a municipality, are you then in the military? Did you become a member of the military when you got hired by Smithville PD? No, you didn't. That's right, you didn't. And to say that certain people can be trusted, but certain people just can't, that is exactly what this sets up. This puts a certain class of American citizens in a subservient or a slave class. This isn't an accident. It's deliberate. It's 100% on purpose. And Jared, I think this is a good time to remind them about what we discussed about the Diary of Anne Frank, don't you?
Oh, yeah. Let's.
The differentiation of classes.
Yeah.
Okay, so this report comes out, and it's got all this 277 pages of happy horse crap. And quite frankly, I don't put any stock in any of it. Sorry. If you're going to hold anything other than an evil human responsible for the actions, or the evil humans that completely disarm other innocent humans, when you force innocent humans to be disarmed and to be set up as targets, then you're part of the problem. You're culpable. But recently I watched on Netflix The Diary of Anne Frank is a movie. It was a book, and then it became a movie. It's actually been made into several movies, going all the way back. I'm not sure when the first one was, but it's been quite a while. But recently, I watched the latest incarnation of the Diary of Anne Frank. And if you don't know what it's all about, essentially Anne Frank was a member of a Jewish family, and it was during the reign of the Nazi Germans. Okay, and Anne Frank's family had to go into hiding because they were rounding Jews up, and when they rounded them up and they went away, they didn't ever come back, and they didn't ever hear from them again. And so what happened, initially, the people that were being put on trains are like, oh, we're just going to go to a work camp. We're going to work there till the war ends, and then we'll come back after that. Well, it didn't take too long until they figured out that, hey, all the people that got rounded up before, and we don't hear from them anymore. And we woke up in the morning, and their front door was broken down, and they're all gone. So they got the clues, and those who couldn't escape tried to hide. And that's what Anne Frank and her family and other Jews did. They tried to hide from the Nazis. And eventually they were found out. But the reason I'm mentioning this is because a lot of you, not I'm going to say it's you, but a lot of modern Americans, they have this weird thought about the Nazis and the Gestapo. Like on Thursday morning, everything was cool. And then the next day, the Nazis came out Friday morning, and they're like, all right, we are the Nazis, and we are taking over, and we're going to round up all the Jews. And it didn't happen like that. It built up over time. And one of the things that they demonstrated in the movie was how, and they basically referenced the Anne Frank's diary, was how Jews, they didn't just wake up one morning and start loading them onto trains. It's not how it worked. But they slowly but surely dehumanized them. Remember, Jared, we talked about this. They dehumanized them. Jews, initially it was like, okay, well, we're not going to round the Jews up, but the Jews they can't own property, or they can't do this, or they can't do that, or they have to have special permission to sell property, or they have to have special permission to do business here, or they can only live in this area, and so forth. And it got to the point in the movie, I believe it says that Jews were forbidden to sit on public benches, and they couldn't ride on public transportation, or they were forbidden to be seen in cars, and so forth. And what they did over a period of years is they dehumanized them. They separated the classes. So by the time they were ready to tell the stormtroopers and the Gestapo and the SS and so forth, by the time they were ready to tell them, hey, you guys go out there and you round up the Jews, by that time they'd already been convinced that they weren't dealing with citizens on equal footing. These weren't people just like you and me. When they sent the stormtroopers out, not the Stasi because that came later, but when they sent those guys out, they weren't sending them out to round up what they considered to be their fellow German citizens. No, not at all. When they went out to round up those people, they were rounding them up as second-class citizens, as underlings, as serfs, as people who were below them. And it made it much more psychologically easy for them. Because, let's face it, folks, people are like, oh, or Gestapo and the SS and the Nazis and so forth. Dudes and dudettes, the Gestapo didn't come down here from Mars. They didn't drop into Germany from Pluto or something. They were members of that society. They were members of that community. They were from that country, and they were from that region. How do you get neighbors to round up other neighbors? How do you get citizens to turn on other citizens? And it wasn't just in Nazi Germany. This has gone on throughout the entire history of the world. Every time you have a tyrannical government, whether it's communism, Nazism, what have you, every time you see that, if you go back and you examine it, you'll see that the people that got put on the trains, that got put on the trucks, that got taken out to the camps, that there was a long and protracted dehumanization of them, making them a second-class citizen, separating the classes. And what you have in a report like this one right here, where they keep saying civilian this, civilian that, outweighs the blah, 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 that report sets up a class of elitists. You have the people that should be allowed, and then you have the people who should not be allowed. And if those people who should not be allowed don't go along with it, well, there's something wrong with them, and you need to not trust them.
They've got a list of 15 recommendations they have for law enforcement on how to deal with stop further issues.
The proliferation.
Yeah, stop further issues of this happening. And all 15 have to do with restricting gun ownership and purchases. None of them have to do with anything else.
Not dealing with evil humans?
Nope. Just restricting gun ownership, ammunition, require trigger locks that must be provided at the time of sale or transfer of any firearm.
That's all garbage. It's all nonsense.
Yeah.
So you suppose that all these laws would have stopped Mr. Jeffrey Williams from popping those two cops? I'm going to go ahead and say no. But who am I? Ladies, so folks, if you learn nothing else from this nonsense, the shame campaign, do not.
Well, it's okay if the cops get killed. It's just we got to save the children.
Oh, the children.
Yeah.
Okay, the children. Okay. I don't know. Is it okay with Danielle or Danelle or whatever its name is?
I don't know. Reading this, I was trying to read through the 277-page document. And
wow, that button hurt. It must have hurt your brain.
Yeah.
Woo! All right, moving on. We're all done talking about Danielle and his slave state nonsense. The next segment of Student of the Gun Radio is brought to you by SWAT Fuel, special weapons and tactics for your body. That's right, hippies. It's for your body. You want a healthy body. You want a healthy mind. You want a little bit extra. Let's say I'm working out. I've been working out. I'm on that hump. I can't quite get over the hump. I need something. Go to SWATfuel.com. It's no joke. It's no baloney. And if you decide to make a purchase, which, hey, if you're serious, why not? Make sure that you use the promo code SOTG2015. It was 14, it's 15 now. It doesn't matter. Both of them will work. But if you do that, you're going to save yourself 20% off your total order. And that is what, Jared?
It's righteous.
That's righteous. It's totally righteous.
And speaking of SWAT Fuel, we've got tomorrow, Wednesday, we will have the SWAT Fuel Fitness Talk tip.
That's right. Fitness Talk.
Brought to you by SWAT Fuel.
Brought to you by SWAT Fuel. But that leads us right up into our next. Do you want to bump it? Do you feel like bumping this one?
Bump it with what?
Well, this is a Muslim missionary story.
No, that would take too long to pull up.
Okay,
stuff.
We're not going to bump it. So here we go. We got a Muslim missionary story. A Muslim missionary is hard at work in Miami. You're like, Miami? What is a Muslim missionary doing down in Miami? Well, I don't know. But Jared's got a story for you. He's going to go ahead and play the audio from this clip, and then we're going to talk about it. And keep in mind, this guy wasn't, he was a recent convert. He was a converted missionary.
Good evening. The rabbi at that synagogue calls this a hate crime, but the suspect calls it something else.
It's a story we brought you first on 7. The 19's Kevin Ozebek has more live from the scene on Miami Beach. Kevin?
Craig and Belkis, the suspect in this case says he was just doing his religious duty. He claims he was encouraging members of this synagogue to convert to Islam. But the rabbi here calls the man's words purely hateful and anti-Semitic.
Very wary.
Rabbi Pinchas Weberman says in the 54 years he's overseen Ohev Shalom Synagogue, he's never felt concern until Diego Char started strolling by.
This subject comes by and says, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, I'm going to cut your heads off. Cut your heads off, repeated it many times.
The rabbi says Char spewed the hateful message to his adult son and a few other members of his congregation Saturday night. Char was arrested and charged with stalking and assault. On Tuesday, he was out of jail, and 7 News spotted him just yards from the synagogue.
Oh, I did not say that.
While he denied threatening to cut heads, he admits to yelling in Arabic, Allahu Akbar. The phrase translates to, God is the greatest. It's actually a very sacred phrase in Islam.
Very sacred.
So why would you yell it to some Jewish men who are outside a synagogue? What was the point of that?
I'm trying to convert them. I convert a lot of my friends.
Char told us he converted to Islam a few years ago while serving time for drug trafficking. Do you have any resentment for the men and women of that synagogue?
No, I try to help them. I don't want them to burn in hell for the rest of eternity. I feel like what they're worshiping right now is nothing.
Of course, the rabbi who's dedicated his life to the Jewish faith, to say the least, disagrees he'll be banished to hell. In fact, after he found out Char was right outside speaking to the media, he called in a complaint to Miami Beach police.
He should have been restrained. He should have been in jail.
And we did ask Char what he makes of offending his fellow Muslims for using such a holy phrase in this way. His response was, they can be as angry as they want. I have freedom of speech. Live tonight in Miami Beach.
So there you have it. You have, I know, I'm still in shock. I almost fell out of my chair here in the Glass Case of Motion Studios, that he was converted to Islam in prison, and now his way is to yell Aloha Snack Bar, and now that he needs.
I thought Islam frowned upon
the religion,
homosexuality.
The religion of peace and brotherhood.
Yeah, I thought they frowned upon homosexuality.
I don't know. I thought they did, but maybe they didn't.
Well, how did he convert in prison then? I don't know.
Oh, I don't know. Hey, come on now. Come on. You're being racist again.
That's
well,
not racist.
Here's the thing is, little wannabe Johnny Jihad Muslim missionary here, he's obviously not down with the cause. He missed something. He apparently missed a meeting. I think that's what he did. He didn't attend one of the meetings because his name shouldn't be whatever it is. What's his name there? Something Char or something? It was Diego Char. Dude, that's not a good Muslim name. He's got to call himself like Ishmael or something, you know? Muhammad Ishmael bin, goat raping, something like that. But Diego Char is not a good Islamic name. So he needs to get back in there. What I'm saying, I'm going to give you some advice here, brother. What you need to do is you need to get off the street in Miami, and you need to get yourself back into a good faith-based mosque. And when you do that, you need to get yourself a good name. Let's go ahead and let's figure things out here, all right? You can't be running around yelling Aloha Snack Bar and then talking to the media and telling them that your name is Diego, all right? You just can't do that. It's got to be something else. Give me a good name, Jared. Give me Abdul Al-Rahim or something like that. I don't know.
Rahim.
And when you pronounce it, you got to clear your throat as you're pronouncing it, okay? Because that's pretty much how you speak. Goat rapist. So we thought you guys would enjoy that. Another classic example of a Muslim missionary, a representative of the religion of peace and brotherhood. Don't forget that. That's what we've always been told. That's what Comrade Barry wants to tell you and all of his minions, that they are representatives of peace and brotherhood, and if you don't accept them, they will cut your head off. So just keep that in mind. All right, coming up tomorrow on Student of the Gun Radio, we've got our SWAT Fuel Fitness Talk moment. We're going to talk about how the Texas Senate has decided to ignore the sandwich makers, and that's obviously going to have their panties all twisted up. And we've got some psycho news from the Great White North. They're at it again. I know you're like, what? Don't they get enough craziness up there? Apparently they don't. But ladies and gentlemen and children of all ages, don't forget, you're a beginner once, but you should indeed be, what? A student for life.